The factory was loud, filled with the endless noise of machines grinding and sparks flying into the air. The smell of burnt metal and oil never left the place. Workers moved slowly under the dim lights, their faces hidden under old, heavy hoodies. Most of them were tired, weak and silent. They were not allowed to speak much, only to work. Among these workers, a human named Daniel walked every day. He was just another worker, paid little, treated the same as the aliens. But Daniel had sharp eyes. He noticed things others ignored. And one day he noticed her. She was small, thin, and kept her head down at all times. Her hoodie was always pulled low, almost covering her face. She worked quietly, never spoke, never argued. To Daniel, she looked like a simple alien worker, maybe younger than the rest. But something about her caught his attention. Her movements were strange. When others rushed to finish tasks, she worked slowly, carefully, as if she was not used to heavy labor. Her hands shook when she touched sharp tools. Her steps were soft, too soft for a factory floor. Daniel thought maybe she was sick or weak, but in her silence, there was a different kind of strength. At lunch break, the workers sat on the cold floor, eating whatever little food they had. Daniel noticed she sat alone in the corner. She never ate with the others, never asked for help. He walked toward her once and offered her some water. She hesitated, then shook her head, not saying a word. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled her hood lower over her face. Daniel walked away, but his mind stayed on her. Something was wrong. He had worked in the factory for months. He had seen aliens of every kind, tall ones, short ones, some with claws, some with scales, but she was different. He could feel it. She was hiding something that night. When the machine stopped and the workers were sent back to the sleeping quarters, Daniel stayed behind, pretending to fix a broken pipe. In the corner of the factory, he saw her. She thought she was alone. Her hoodie slipped back just a little, and he saw her drawing something in the dust on the floor. Strange glowing symbols appeared under her finger. They looked alive, shining for only a moment before fading. Daniel's heart raced. Ordinary workers did not know such things. These were not simple marks. They were sacred symbols, words of old power. She quickly erased them with her hand when she heard footsteps. She pulled the hood tight and hurried away. Daniel stood frozen, his mind racing. Who was she? Why was she here in this place? The next day, he tried to watch her more carefully. She carried heavy boxes, but stumbled often, like she had never done such work before. Her hands were soft, not rough like other workers. Daniel began to wonder. Maybe she was not a worker at all. Maybe she was hiding. Rumors had started spreading in the factory. Whispers about guards searching for someone, a runaway. Workers spoke in low voices about a royal family betrayed and destroyed. A daughter who disappeared in the chaos. No one knew if it was true. Some laughed at the idea. But Daniel remembered the glowing symbols. He did not laugh. One evening, as the siren called the end of the shift, Daniel found himself walking beside her. He tried to speak again. "You work too slow. The guards will notice," he said softly. She flinched at his voice, as if his words were knives. For a second, he thought she would reply, but she only pulled the hood lower. Hiding even more of her face, Daniel sighed. His instincts screamed that she was not what she seemed. He wanted to leave her alone, but he could not. The mystery was too deep. That night, he lay awake on the thin mattress in the workers' quarters. The whispers of the day echoed in his mind. The glowing marks, the silence, the fear in her eyes. Who was she really? Why hide here among the forgotten workers of the factory? The shadows of the factory stretched long and dark, holding secrets that could change everything. Daniel did not know it yet, but by noticing her, by caring even a little, he had already stepped into a story far bigger than himself. The girl under the hoodie was no simple worker, and soon the galaxy would know her face. The next morning, the factory shook again with the sound of machines. The air was heavy with dust and smoke. Workers moved like shadows, their faces hidden, their bodies tired. Daniel pushed through the noise. His eyes searching, he found her in the corner, lifting a box that was clearly too heavy for her small frame. He walked closer. "Careful," he said, but she did not reply. She only struggled harder, nearly dropping the box. Daniel reached out quickly and steadied it with his hands. For a moment, their eyes met from under her hood. He saw fear, pure, sharp fear, before she turned away. At the lunch break, Daniel noticed again how she sat alone. The other workers ate in groups, whispering stories and rumors. But she kept her back against the cold wall. her hood low, her food untouched. Daniel sat across from her this time. He set down his piece of dry bread and a small flask of water. "You never eat much," he said softly. "If you keep skipping meals, you'll fall sick." Her hands froze. She glanced at the food but did not touch it. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Daniel leaned closer. "I don't mean harm, I just don't like seeing anyone starve." Finally, she whispered, her voice so quiet he almost thought it was the wind. "Don't talk to me." Her words surprised him. They were not rude but desperate, as if she was warning him for his own safety. Before Daniel could say more, the factory whistle blew. Signaling the end of the break, she rose quickly, leaving her food untouched. That night, Daniel's thoughts refused to rest. The glowing symbols he had seen yesterday burned in his memory. He needed answers. He decided to watch her again. When the machine stopped, the guards shouted at the workers to return to their bunks. But Daniel slipped away into the shadows. He hid behind a broken column and waited. The girl appeared moments later. Moving silently across the floor, she knelt down in the dust, looking around to be sure no one watched. Then she began to draw again. This time, Daniel saw clearly. Her finger traced lines of light, shapes that twisted and moved like living things. They were not random marks, these were old runes. He had seen them once in a forbidden book. Symbols of ancient royalty. Daniel's heart pounded. She was no ordinary worker, he was sure now. But what was she doing here among slaves and broken machines? Suddenly she stopped, her hood shifted, and Daniel saw the faint glow of strange marks on her neck. They looked like tattoos, but they shimmered like stars. She pulled the hood back quickly and erased the runes with her hand. Her eyes darted around the room. Daniel held his breath. Afraid she would notice him when she walked away, Daniel followed her quietly, his footsteps soft against the metal floor. She moved toward the old storage section of the factory, a place the guards rarely checked. She sat down alone in the corner, her hands covering her face for the first time. Daniel saw her shoulders shaking. She was crying. He felt a pull in his chest. He wanted to step forward, to comfort her, but his mind screamed with warning. If she was who he thought she was, getting close meant danger. Still, he could not turn away. He stepped out of the shadows. "You don't belong here," he said quietly. She gasped and looked up. Her eyes shone faintly in the dark, silver-like under the dim lights. For a moment she looked ready to run, but then she froze. She realized he had seen too much. "You should stay away from me," she whispered. "If the guards know you've seen me, you will die too." Daniel shook his head. "I've been in danger since the day I walked into this factory. You're not safe here, I can see that." He lowered his voice. "I saw the marks, the runes. You're not a worker." Her breath caught. She looked down, pulling her hood tighter, but silence spoke louder than words. Daniel took a step closer. "Who are you really?" Her lips trembled. She wanted to answer, but fear held her back. Instead, she whispered, "Forget me, pretend you never saw me. Please." Before Daniel could press further, the sound of heavy boots echoed in the hall, guards patrolling at an unusual hour. The girl's eyes widened. Panic flashed across her face without another word. She vanished into the shadows, leaving Daniel alone as the guards approached. Daniel quickly bent down. Pretending to fix a broken pipe, the guards passed, their harsh voices cutting through the silence. "The Queen's daughter must be hiding somewhere. If she's here, we'll find her." Daniel froze. His heart hammered in his chest. The whispers were true. The girl was no simple worker. She was the missing royal heir, hunted by her enemies when the guards left. Daniel stood in the silence of the factory. His hands shaking, he knew one thing now. His life had just changed forever. The factory was even louder the next day. Sparks rained down from broken machines. Guards shouted at workers to move faster. Daniel kept his head low, but his eyes searched for her. The girl with the hoodie, the one hiding more than anyone could guess. She worked near the conveyor belts that morning, lifting small metal parts and placing them into boxes. Her hands were quick but shaky. Daniel saw her stumble once, almost dropping everything. A guard walked by and smacked another worker for moving too slow, but strangely he ignored her. That detail did not escape Daniel. Why did the guards avoid her? Did they know something too? Hours passed, and the heat inside the factory grew unbearable. Sweat dripped from every face. The air was thick and hard to breathe. The girl bent forward, her hood slipping a little. Daniel saw a glimpse of silver skin glowing faintly beneath the shadows of fabric. His chest tightened. She was struggling to keep her secret, then it happened. A loud crack echoed through the hall as one of the machines exploded in sparks. Workers screamed and scattered. Daniel ducked behind a wall, covering his head. The girl stumbled near the conveyor. A box falling from her hands, her hood slid back just enough. For the first time, Daniel saw the truth. Glowing lines ran down the side of her neck, shining softly like living fire under her skin. They were not scars, not tattoos, they were royal marks, symbols of power. Heritage and bloodline. Daniel's breath caught. He froze. The whispers had been right all along. She realized too late that her hood had slipped. Panic flashed in her eyes as she pulled it back quickly. She turned and saw Daniel watching for a moment, their eyes locked. Her gaze pleaded silently, begging him not to speak. Not to betray her. Daniel's mind spun. He wanted to ask 100 questions. But he stayed silent. If the guards saw, both of them would die. The guards rushed to the broken machine, shouting orders and beating the workers who had been closest. Daniel used the chaos to step closer to her. He whispered quickly, "I saw, but I won't tell, don't worry." Her shoulders stiffened. She pulled the hood tight and turned away. But Daniel noticed the tremor in her hands. She was scared, but also relieved that he had not shouted it out. Later that night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling. His mind replayed the glowing lines, the way her skin shone like light under the hood. It was not normal, it was not something any worker could have. She was royal blood hiding in plain sight, but why here? Why risk her life in this factory? Daniel decided he needed answers. The next day, he stayed near her during work, pretending to carry boxes while keeping an eye on her. She avoided him, keeping her head low. But Daniel waited for the right chance. It came during the evening break. When most workers sat exhausted and silent, Daniel walked to her corner again. He kept his voice low. "I know what you're hiding. You don't have to tell me, but I need to understand, why are you here?" She froze. Her fingers clutched her food but didn't move. For a moment, Daniel thought she would stay silent again. Then she whispered, "If you know, then stay away from me. If they catch you near me, you will die too." Daniel shook his head. "I've been dying a little every day in this place anyway. Maybe helping you is the only thing that makes me alive." Her hood tilted slightly, as if she was surprised by his words, but she still said nothing more. That night, Daniel followed her again. This time she didn't draw runes. She stood near the old storage corner, her face tilted up toward the cracked ceiling where a faint moonlight shone through. For the first time, Daniel saw her without the shadows covering her face. Just for a second, the hood slipped again. She was not just beautiful, she was otherworldly. Her skin glowed faintly with silver patterns that moved like waves of light. Her eyes shimmered with a soft glow. Not human, not worker-like. They were royal, sharp yet full of sorrow. Daniel's breath caught. He had seen queens on screens before, leaders with crowns and armies, but this girl, she looked younger, fragile. Yet there was something powerful hidden in her presence. Suddenly she sensed him. Her hood snapped back into place as she spun around. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered sharply. "Do you want death to come faster?" Daniel stepped forward, refusing to back away. "I want the truth," he said. "I saw the marks. I saw your face. You're not a worker. You're someone important, aren't you?" Her silence was the answer. She didn't deny it. She only lowered her head, trembling. Before Daniel could ask more, a whistle echoed through the night. The sound of guards approaching? The girl's eyes widened. Panic returned. She pulled her hood tight and whispered, "Forget me, please. If you value your life," then she disappeared into the shadows, vanishing faster than he thought possible. Daniel stood there, his chest heavy with questions and fear. He now carried her secret, a dangerous secret. One slip of his tongue could mean death for both of them. But one thing was certain. The girl in the hoodie was not who she seemed, and Daniel knew deep inside that his life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. The factory was quiet after the day's chaos, but Daniel could not sleep. His mind raced with thoughts of her, the girl with the hoodie, the one who carried secrets bigger than any human could imagine. He replayed the glowing marks on her skin, the silver lines that moved like liquid fire, her eyes glowing softly in the shadow. He didn't know why, but he felt drawn to her. Like a moth to a flame, dangerous yet impossible to resist that night. He decided to follow her again, careful not to make a sound. He crept through the narrow alleys behind the factory. The air was cold and damp, fog rolled over the ground, making shadows stretch and twist. Perfect cover for someone trying to hide. He saw her ahead, standing still near a pile of crates. Her hood was back on, but her posture was tense, alert. She looked like she was listening to something he could not hear. Daniel slowed down, moving closer. He heard faint whispers. Words in a language he did not understand, yet the tone was urgent, desperate. She seemed to be speaking to herself, or was it someone else? Suddenly, a shadow moved behind the crates. Dark and fast, but she didn't flinch. She stepped forward and the shadow retreated. Daniel squinted, trying to see, but it vanished into the fog. She turned, sensing him again. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice sharper than before. "I can't stay away," Daniel replied softly. "I need to know who you are and why you're here." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment Daniel thought she would vanish again. But she did not. Instead, she lowered her voice, almost a plea. "There are things in this city you do not understand. Things that hunt, things that kill." Daniel stepped closer, cautiously. "Then let me help you." Her laugh was bitter, almost broken. "Help me." "You don't even know what I am." Daniel shook his head. "I know more than you think. I saw the marks on your skin, the glow under your hoodie. You're not a worker, you're someone important." Her eyes widened and she took a step back. "You weren't supposed to see that," she said, voice trembling. Now they will know we've met," Daniel frowned. "They? Who are they?" Before she could answer, a distant rumble echoed through the alley. Low, heavy, like machines moving in the dark. She froze, and Daniel could see fear in her glowing eyes. "They're close," she whispered. "We must move now." Without another word, she dashed down a narrow passage between two abandoned warehouses. Daniel ran after her, slipping and tripping over broken crates. His heart pounded, fear and adrenaline mixed. The city at night was alive with danger, but she seemed to navigate it with ease, like she belonged to the shadows. They reached a hidden doorway, almost invisible. Tucked behind a pile of rusted metal, she pressed a hand against the wall, and it slid open silently, revealing a small hidden chamber. The inside was lit by faint blue light. Strange symbols lined the walls. Moving slowly like they were alive, Daniel stepped inside cautiously. Looking around, his eyes widened at the sight. This was not just a hiding place. It was a sanctuary. Strange devices hummed softly, and the air smelled faintly of ozone. She turned to him, her hood still on. "You shouldn't be here," she said again, but her voice was softer, almost afraid. Daniel met her gaze. "I want to help." "I don't care about the danger." For a moment, silence filled the room. The hum of the devices was the only sound. Then she sighed finally. "I have no choice. I must trust you." She pulled back her hood slowly, revealing the glowing marks along her neck and shoulders. The pattern shimmered like liquid silver in the blue light. Daniel couldn't look away. His heart raced. He had never seen anything so beautiful, so powerful, so terrifying. "I am not like other workers," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I am from a place they would kill to protect. I have a name. But here it means nothing. Here I must hide. Or I die." Daniel stepped closer. "Careful. Then I will help you hide. I don't care what they call you. I only care that you're alive." Her eyes searched his, looking for lies, for weakness, but she found none. Slowly, she nodded, just a little. The first sign of trust. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the dangerous secrets hiding in its dark alleys. Inside, two strangers, one human, one alien, shared a quiet moment, each knowing the world outside could end them at any second. Yet neither moved away, both understanding that from this moment on, their fates were tied together. And Daniel knew one thing clearly. The girl with the hoodie was no ordinary worker. She was someone the entire city, maybe the galaxy, would hunt if her secret were ever revealed. And he had just decided, without fully realizing it, that he would face that danger with her, whatever came next, because sometimes doing nothing was more deadly than taking a risk, and he was done hiding. The morning fog had barely lifted when the first warning came. A low mechanical hum vibrated through the streets. The city felt colder, sharper, like it had teeth. Daniel's heart pounded. He knew it wasn't a normal patrol. It was something else, something hunting, something that knew her. She pulled her hood tighter. "They found the signal. They know I'm here," she said, her voice tense. "We have to move now." Daniel nodded, trying to keep calm. He had no idea what she was, only that she was in danger, and he couldn't leave her together. They slipped through the hidden passages behind the factory district, narrow alleys, crumbling walls, and pipes that groaned under their weight. Every shadow seemed alive. Every echo felt like a warning. Daniel stumbled once, catching himself on a rusted pipe. "Careful," she hissed, grabbing his arm. "One wrong step and they'll see us," he swallowed. "I can handle it," he said, but his voice betrayed him. His mind raced with questions. Why was she hiding? Who wanted her dead? And most importantly, why did he care so much as they moved? She led him through places Daniel never knew existed. Secret tunnels beneath abandoned factories, crumbling rooftops connected by narrow beams. The city above, unaware of the escape route that twisted like a spider's web. Finally, they stopped in a small abandoned subway station. The walls were cracked, graffiti covered every surface. But here they had a moment, a pause. Daniel could see the exhaustion in her eyes. The constant running had worn her thin. "They're fast," she said quietly. "Faster than anything you've ever seen." Daniel frowned. "Who are they? What do they want?" She shook her head. "It doesn't matter what they want, only that they will not stop until I'm gone, until I'm captured or worse." Her voice trembled, and Daniel realized for the first time how much fear she carried. He stepped closer. "You don't have to face it alone." "Not anymore." For a moment she looked at him, something flickering in her glowing eyes. Trust, hope, or desperation? He couldn't tell, but she nodded just slightly. Enough to show he had made a difference. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the tunnels, metal scraping on concrete. Heavy footsteps, deliberate and chilling. "They're here," she whispered, grabbing his hand. "Follow me." They ran again, faster this time. The tunnels twisted and turned. Daniel could barely keep up. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but he couldn't let go. He wouldn't. Then they reached a vertical shaft, leading up to a maintenance hatch. She looked at him, her eyes wide. "We climb now, or they catch us," Daniel nodded. And together they scrambled up. Hands bleeding, knees scraping, the hatch creaked under their weight. But it held, finally. They pulled themselves into a rooftop. The city stretched below them, streets like veins in a gray cityscape. Daniel caught his breath, but there was no time to rest. She pointed to a network of cables strung between buildings. "We have to move across the cables. They can't follow us there." He glanced down, his stomach twisting. "Are you serious?" She gave a small, sharp laugh. "You wanted to help, didn't you?" "Now is the test." Daniel swallowed hard. But he nodded, following her onto the cables. Every step was a test. The wire swayed under their weight. The drop below dizzying, the wind howling like the hunt was alive. Halfway across, he heard a metallic click behind them. He turned slightly, and his blood ran cold. Shadows moved on the rooftop below. 4 figures, tall, humanoid, but their movements sharp and unnatural. Eyes glowing red in the early light. "They found us," she hissed. "Run!" They ran, carefully balancing on the wire. One wrong move and they would fall. The wind tugged at Daniel, trying to throw him off, but she held steady, her glowing marks pulsating like a heartbeat, guiding him, pushing him forward. Finally, they reached the next rooftop, landing hard, rolling to absorb the impact. Daniel gasped for air. Who are they?" She turned to him, her face serious, glowing eyes sharp. "Hunters, bounty hunters. They work for people who want me gone. They will never stop until they have me or us." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then we fight," he said, more firmly than he felt. She shook her head. "No, not yet. We run, we hide, we survive. Then we fight on our terms." Daniel looked at her. The fear, the power, the mystery radiating from her. And he knew one thing: whatever came next, he was committed. To the chase, to the danger, to her above them. The city stretched endlessly, the sun rising over the horizon, painting the rooftops in gold. But the shadows were still there, watching, waiting, ready to strike. And Daniel realized that this was no longer a game, no longer just curiosity or fascination. It was survival, trust, and something else, something he couldn't name. Yet he felt it in every pulse of his chest. The chase had begun, and there was no turning back. The sun had barely climbed above the horizon, but the city already felt alive, buzzing with the noise of distant engines, clanging metal and hurried footsteps. Daniel and the alien girl crouched behind a broken wall on the rooftop, their chests heaving. The wind whipped around them, carrying the faint smell of smoke and rust. "They're still out there," she whispered, eyes scanning every rooftop, every alley. Her glowing markings pulsed faintly, like tiny warning lights. "We can't stop now. Not even for a second." Daniel swallowed hard, trying to calm his racing heart. "Where do we go?" he asked, voice low. "We can't keep running forever." She shook her head. "We don't have forever. Not until I disappear completely from their tracking. Then we can think." Her gaze was sharp, calculating. Like a predator studying its next move, they moved silently, leaping across crumbling rooftops, Daniel following as best as he could. Each jump felt like a test of trust, each landing shaking his knees. The city below stretched endlessly, a maze of concrete and steel, and somewhere inside it hunters waited, invisible but deadly. Suddenly, a faint hum reached Daniel's ears, subtle, almost inaudible. He froze, listening. "Do you hear that?" She nodded, her expression tightening. "Yes, they're close, closer than I thought." "Stay alert." From the shadows of a nearby rooftop, a figure emerged, tall, lean, and moving with unnatural precision. Its red eyes locked onto them instantly. Daniel felt his stomach twist, fear, adrenaline, and disbelief mingling into a sharp edge. "They're not human," he whispered. More to himself than her, she glanced at him, her eyes softening briefly. "No, they're not. But we can't fight them directly, not yet. We need to stay smart." The figure raised a weapon, a long, sleek device that hummed with energy, and without warning it fired. A streak of light shot across the rooftop. Narrowly missing them, Daniel ducked instinctively. Heart in his throat. "We need to move," she shouted, grabbing his hand. "Now!" They darted across a narrow walkway, the figure following with terrifying speed. Daniel stumbled, almost falling. She caught him instantly, pulling him back onto the roof. "Keep moving or we die here." They slid down a fire escape into a dim alley, shadows stretching and twisting. The walls closed in, the air thick with the scent of damp concrete. Daniel's lungs burned. "How do you know all these paths?" he gasped. She didn't answer immediately, her eyes scanning. "I've learned to survive," she said finally. Voice low, almost sad. "The city isn't kind to someone like me. I've had to hide, escape, and fight since I was small." Daniel's mind raced, trying to piece it together. Someone who had been hunted so long, yet still strong, smart, almost untouchable, and now he was part of her world. Part of her danger, part of the chase. A sudden noise made them freeze. A small drone, barely bigger than Daniel's hand, hovered in the alley ahead, scanning the walls with a soft blue light. "They're using drones too?" Daniel asked, panic rising. She nodded. "Yes, they track everything. Every movement, every sound, every step we take is being watched. That's why we need to move carefully." The drone's light scanned the alley. Approaching slowly, Daniel's hands shook as he searched for a place to hide. She pointed to a small doorway, half hidden in shadows. "There now." They slipped inside, the drone passing by just inches from the doorway. Daniel exhaled sharply, barely containing his relief. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "We're not safe yet. Not until we reach the old tunnels," Daniel frowned. "Old tunnels? Where?" She glanced around, then leaned closer. "There's a network beneath the city, abandoned for decades. They won't follow us there, not easily. It's our only chance to disappear for a while." He nodded, trusting her instinct completely now. "Lead the way." They moved through the narrow passage behind the door, the air damp and cold. The sound of dripping water echoed, each drop making Daniel jump. He realized how silent the city could feel when you were truly hiding. Suddenly, the passage widened into a small chamber. She turned to him, serious. "We'll rest here briefly, but we can't linger. They might have already tracked our last position." "Every second counts." Daniel sank to the floor, exhaustion hitting him all at once. She sat beside him, scanning the entrance, alert as ever. Her glowing marks dimmed slightly, signaling the brief moment of calm. "I've been running for years," she whispered, almost to herself, "and now, I don't know if I can stop." Daniel looked at her, seeing the fear, the strength, the burden she carried. "You don't have to stop," he said, quietly. "Not while I'm here. We'll face this together, I promise." Her eyes met his. A flicker of something more than trust, something deeper, but before Daniel could ask, a distant metallic click echoed, reminding them both. The hunters were still out there, waiting, relentless, and Daniel knew, with a cold certainty, the hidden threat was closer than ever. The chase was far from over. The tunnels were dark, damp, and narrow. The air smelled of wet stone and old machinery. Daniel's shoes echoed softly as he followed her. Every step felt like walking on a knife's edge. The city above hummed faintly, but down here it was silent, dangerous. Alive with secrets, she led him carefully, her hands brushing over walls to find old markers. "We're close," she whispered. "These tunnels lead to a place where they won't find us quickly. But we must be ready. They could be above or below. Anywhere." Daniel's chest tightened. "How do you know so much?" She glanced at him, eyes glowing faintly. "I've lived my life running, learning the hidden paths, watching the hunters, understanding them. It's the only way to survive in this city." They reached a junction, two paths stretching in opposite directions. "We take the left," she said decisively. "It leads to the old maintenance chamber. That's where we can hide, and maybe plan our next move." As they moved, the sound of distant footsteps echoed. Daniel froze. "They're here, aren't they?" She nodded, tension in every line of her body. "Yes, but we have a plan. We can't fight them directly, not now." Not without risking everything, they entered the chamber, filled with rusted pipes and old control panels. Dust hung in the air, dancing in the small beams of light from the girl's glowing marks. She moved to a hidden panel, pressing a sequence of buttons that made a small section of the wall slide open. "This leads to an exit they won't expect," she said, voice low. "It's old, abandoned. But it's our chance." Daniel followed her, heart pounding. The sense of being hunted was all-consuming. Every sound, every shadow felt like a threat. Suddenly, a harsh metallic screech echoed from above. The hunters had found their trail. Red lights flickered down the tunnel, approaching fast. Daniel grabbed her hand instinctively. "We have to go." She nodded, leading him through the narrow exit. A hidden stairwell spiraled down into darkness. They descended quickly, the air growing colder with every step. At the bottom, they emerged into a massive underground chamber. Abandoned vehicles and old machinery littered the space. She paused, listening, then whispered, "This is it. We can hide here at least for a while until they think we've vanished completely." Daniel's knees felt weak, relief washing over him. "We made it," he said quietly. More to himself than her, but she didn't relax. Eyes scanning every corner, every shadow felt alive. Every sound made her flinch slightly. "Not yet," she said. "We can't trust it. Not until we're sure they're gone." Hours passed in tense silence, only the faint dripping of water breaking the stillness. Daniel watched her, noticing the fatigue etched on her face. The weight of constant fear, the burden of running, hiding, surviving. He reached out, taking her hand gently. "You don't have to do this alone," he said softly. "Not anymore, I'm here. And I'm not leaving ever." Her eyes met his, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through. She had been strong, unyielding, but now with him, there was a moment of trust, of hope. Then, a sudden sound, metal scraping against concrete coming from the chamber entrance. Daniel's heart leapt. She immediately moved, pulling him behind an old vehicle. A figure appeared, a hunter, its red eyes scanning. "Weapon ready?" It stopped, sensing something, but didn't move forward. Then another figure appeared, and another. Slowly, the hunters spread. Covering the chamber entrances, they were patient, calculating, waiting for the slightest move. The girl whispered, "We can't fight them all, but we can use the tunnels. The layout is old. They won't know every path. We can trap them, lead them into a dead end, and disappear." Daniel nodded, adrenaline surging. "Lead the way. I trust you." She moved like a shadow, guiding him through narrow passages, leading hunters away from their hiding spot. Every turn was calculated, every step a gamble. Finally, they reached a dead-end corridor. She stopped, hiding in the shadows. The hunters approached, red eyes scanning, weapons ready. Then she activated a hidden device. A small EMP pulse, flickering lights. Shorting the hunters' equipment, they paused, confused, giving the girl and Daniel a perfect chance. They slipped past, moving quickly through a hidden passage, emerging finally into the old city outskirts. The night sky stretched above them, stars shimmering faintly, a cold wind brushing against their faces. Daniel exhaled, relief mingling with disbelief. We made it." She looked at him, a small, tired smile on her lips. "For now," she said. "But the city, the hunters, they'll never stop. We just have to be smarter, faster together." He nodded, understanding the truth of her words. But in that moment he felt something else, something stronger than fear or danger. Trust, connection, and the unspoken bond of survival. They walked into the night, two figures against a city that had tried to crush them. But they had survived together, ready to face whatever came next, and Daniel knew, no matter what, he would never let her face the world alone again.